Hello and welcome to the Thread to Men podcast. My name is Taylor and I'm coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland, and this is a podcast about all things fiber related. If you're a new viewer, thank you for joining us. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. Just hearing all of your comments and your responses to these videos keeps me motivated and continuing to record. I'm not finding it easy to make time for knitting or spinning or recording so much any longer. My new job has a lot of things to do. And the cool thing is that I get to work at a lot of different places in town and around Baltimore almost every day of the week. So I'm driving more and I'm talking more and I'm just doing a lot more, which is really exciting, and I'm really grateful to have that opportunity. So when it's the weekend, I pretty much just unplug and don't engage with human beings and just try to knit and spin. But because I'm also a human with basic needs, I take care of those as well. So I'm not finding as much time in my life as I'd like to for knitting and spinning, even though I'm still able to do it weekly. So I'm noticing that I'm like acquiring things in place of, which is like a blessing that I'm able to, but it's also kind of an impulse that I'm observing with my discernment. And so I'm trying to like pull back and kind of take inventory. So I've pulled out a lot of things from stash to knit. I don't know where that voice came from. I like have this guilty pleasure of watching The View because I just like Whoopi Goldberg and like the way she handles conversation. I don't know. Anyway, she does this thing with her voice like that, and I just did it. Okay, I'm just gonna show you really quick some projects I'm working on. There's gonna be a lot of editing to this video because I'm umming a lot, and here we go. I did pick the winner from my last giveaway. It was the episode before the previous one to now, and I did message the winner of that podcast giveaway. So if you left a comment on one of my previous videos offering some free yarn, then go check your messages, see if you heard from me, and respond please. I gathered a lot of things because I want to do a little what's on my needles recap before the end of the year. I know I'm going to record future episodes before January 1st of 2019, but I kind of wanted to take inventory of what I'm working on. There's a few small projects I've cast on and started, but they're not a priority. However, I'm making it a priority to kind of complete everything that I've started from now up through the end of the year. Where to begin? Well, okay, so I have, actually interesting that I'm wearing this, didn't even plan it, but this is my range shawl by Andrea Mowry. I have a project page on Ravelry that'll tell you about the yarns in it, and here are some of my scraps. This actually was a separate cable hat project leftover skein, and this one is not in any project, but from the same farm, Good Karma Farm, that the gold color and the dark green color came from. I knit this shawl using all of the gold color, and that's when I decided to make the end of the pattern a little shorter than maybe it needed to be to make it work. It's a perfect size shawl. I love it. This is all that's left of that, and I love it so much that I held on to that. So I'm gonna make a project. I was kind of like not wanting to swatch, which is dumb because I would have had like real knowledge, but I just like cast on odd numbers that I thought might work, and then I'll always like wrap it around my head and see like how many stitches should that have been, and then I do that many stitches and see if that works, and then I repeat the process ad nauseum. I should just knit a swatch. But I cast on maybe for a hat. I don't even know. I just want to use all the scrap yarn and get it out of my life. I do have a tiny little weaving tool that I discovered in a drawer that I got as part of a fiber share, and I might use either the scraps of this project for that or make little scrap worsted weight thick coasters or something. So this is a basket that I'm thinking about and reflecting on, that I want to make something with and create space in my life. I have two more like little projects. One is a boring square rectangle thing with rolly edges. This is going to be a simple throw pillow cover out of yarn in my stash that I bought at a really cheap price. It is some kind of single ply cascade yarn that has some kind of rustic quality to it. It's I think it'll be a great pillow cover. And I have a bunch of skeins. So I'm just knitting this to get rid of it and cover a pillow. I also have on my needles a simple knit bra. I don't think I've showed this to you before, and I dropped a couple stitches picking it up, but it's just a DK weight superwash merino variegated yarn that I'm gonna wear under my clothes. I think I showed this to you in the last podcast episode. I do not know. I actually like the way it's knitting up. I don't know why I said actually. I don't love the word actually, but it's Dream Classy yarns. I pulled this basket off the wall of my little craft room, and this is where I store all of my hand spun remnants. Each time that I spin a skein of yarn, I always end up with one of two bobbins with extra yardage, and I usually just spin off of that when I do my next spin, or I use a different bobbin and it just sits there and waits. And then anytime that I have two bobbins with extra yarn, I pretty much have a generic spinning weight. There's times I've switched it up, and I'll talk about that, but I'll just ply them together because they're roughly the same weight, and I'll have a supply of remnant marled yarn. So I did that a bunch this past weekend. I cleared all my bobbins in preparation for the project spin I had talked about in my previous episode, and I have a bunch of new mini skeins for you. However, I realized now suddenly that I've added these mini skeins to a collection, and I might just show you all of them. So the first one is one I'm most excited about, and I actually have two. Why do I have two? Because I was spinning one bobbin, and then I realized that I was spinning like too thin, and I was making basically a lace weight 2-ply yarn when my intention is to knit a fingering weight 2-ply yarn. So I just started over and did a new bobbin, and then I decided I don't like the direction this project was going suddenly, and I'm about to spin this new fleece, which is a similar color, so I'm just going to clear these bobbins and be done with it. So what I did for the first time ever was a chain plied yarn, which you'll find techniques on how to do that on YouTube. That's how I learned. Actually, that's how I learned everything, is finding it on YouTube. But I spun a, I don't know, sport weight yarn, I would say. It actually, the thing about hand spun is it's just so hard to know what weight it is. It's not as big as worsted weight, but to me, worsted weight almost feels chunky. I don't even know anymore. But this is a 3-ply. It's super bouncy. It's super squishy. It has so much spring in it. Like, if I just take this, I can stretch it. It's actually not even a good example of like the amount of stretch. Like this, obviously a skein. It's gonna, what am I doing? Okay, so here it is in the skein. It's a 3-ply. it's a fingering weight-ish. This is the bobbin that I spun on itself that was like turning lace weight. So this is a true fingering weight spin. And then this one is my regular, like trying to hit 2-ply fingering weight. So with the extra 3rd ply, it's more like a sport or a DK. And I was kidding myself and thinking that this might be worsted. I might have to remeasure it because I feel like sometimes my measuring just lies. Like I don't know what's the truth. So I have that. And then this one's new. It's the leftover from my Cormo Cross dark gray fleece, plied back on a merino fleece that was given to me that I mostly scrapped, but I spun a bit from. All of this is Cormo Cross. This is my new sample spin of the newest fleece plied back onto fleece, Cormo fleece that I had naturally dyed somehow. Here is a Malabrigo Noob superwash merino skein plied either back on itself or, oh yeah, this is actually the yarn that I knit into my Tecumseh. So here you can see how it looked in the skein and how it's knit up there. I remembered that I put all of my hand spun scraps in here. This is a scrap from another previous sweater. This is BFL. This is the lichen colorway bought by Port Fiber. This is a mystery skein, also plied back on the same merino fleece prep that I did. I have more Cormo on Cormo. This is a Cormo Cross over dyed with, actually it was dyed in the wool. And this might have been, I don't know, everything came out yellow one year. It was just like goldenrod and lichen and onion skins. It was like one batch after the next were all the same color. This is merino plied on Cormo, also naturally dyed or natural colored. Wait, did I already show this? I might have picked it up. This is actually, the color in this skein are the 2 natural fleeces I own. So one is Morit, it's that pinky-ish, kind of peachy gray, and then the other is the natural gray. I have the same Morit sample applied back on the Malabrigo, and then this is a Jacob spin applied back on Cormo, and this one's a little bit thicker than the rest. And then I have a whole skein here that's just a lonely skein that's not part of a future project that I have in this basket because I think I'll use it as the base or main color to whatever I do with all these skeins. And this was dyed in the wool mulberries, and it turned out blue. So if you ever want to do a natural dye bath that is not indigo, I would recommend mulberries. I think I might have used an iron oxide to change the dye. I don't know. It's always an experiment. So these will eventually become a Harlow hat, which is an Andrew Mowry pattern for a brioche stitch reversible beanie. I like the way she chose the decreases, and I also like that when she was designing that pattern, she kind of asked her audience of knitters, like, what's your favorite type of crown? And I don't know what people's responses were or what all of her, like, like designing knitting looked like, but I know it was intentionally chosen, and I like it. It's a lot like any of the basic, like, Carhartt or whatever brand beanies you'll find, like the knit beanies that you find in a store. They're like super thick acrylic beanie type tops. I guess you'd say it's like a quadrant, like there's 4 or 2 seams, sort of. Anyway, I also am knitting that with Harrisville Designs yarn, which is, let me see. Here it is. I just started knitting this again. I started knitting this before and at Rhinebeck, and I totally like twisted the beginning of round sort of stitch. So soon I'll be switching over to circulars that are a little more easy to work with. I'm like using a 32 or 40 inch circular now in Magic Loop, which is not the worst. I don't enjoy DPNs, so this Magic Loop is my preferred method, but I do like to knit on a skein, I do like to knit on needles that are just the right circumference, so you're not always having to pull the Magic Loop out. So that's an inventory of my current projects. Not even really. There's 2 more. Not to say this is a ton, but I forgot about them. And actually they're the ones I work on the most. Alright, so I have here, dun, 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 this is did I show this to you last time? I think I did. I haven't done much. This is the Sipila pullover. And if you don't know the pattern, it'll look like that maybe this sweater's mostly red, but it just has a lot of the contrast up top. So the bottom of the sweater is going to be green. I love it. These are my favorite colors together to knit this season. It's just so light and squishy. It's like summer knitting in fall colors. And then this, which I haven't shown you yet, and I have knit everything that I've knit so far twice. I have been working on this a lot, and it is my, I have the 3rd skein upstairs still, but the 3rd skein's a natural white. It's not like bright white, it's kind of like a soft, warm white, but I'm knitting. These were the white I'm mentioning, and this skein are from the same fleece, and this was the Cormo Cross fleece I bought at Rhinebeck of 2017. It was black and white, and I took the pieces that were kind of mixed between the two, blended them on my hand combs, and spun. And then this was Cormo of fleece I bought at the 2017 Maryland Sheep and Wool, and it was over-dyed with either birch bark or black walnuts. I cannot remember. I didn't write anything down. But I'm knitting these in the Golden Hour shawl by Andrea Mowry. I guess I'm a super fan of hers in that I've knit a lot of her patterns. I just trust, and actually I remember her saying this, or maybe it was Caitlin was saying this, like, patterns are so much better than they used to be. I just know buying a pattern from Caitlin or Andrea, it's going to be well written, and I will never regret it. Not to say that other patterns aren't well written. Sometimes, though, they're just of a design that I didn't expect and is more complicated than my brain really wants to handle. And I just have this sense of trust with those 2 designers that I just know I'm going to enjoy the process. So that's why I knit them so much. Also, I love their designs. So this hand spun yarn, it's like really it's super squishy, and it's nice and, I don't know, squishy. There's nothing like hand spun yarn. Nothing is as squishy. But it's a little stiff because it's a little overplied. And I think that when I wet it and block it, it's going to kind of bloom and kind of expand and become less like rigid feeling. So yeah, I am not a shawl knitter, and I'm learning that the more I try knitting shawls. It's just things like change so frequently. To me, it's not, once I get to longer rows, as you can see, each row is nearly longer than the next, things are going to feel like they change less frequently, so it'll be more travel friendly. It'll also be bigger and less travel friendly in that way, but yeah. So I'm really loving the way this comes out, or the way that this is coming out. I enjoy these kind of breakups between the changeovers of, basic stockinette or color work with a more integrated design. And I wish I were knitting this right now. I have just a couple more things to show off. The first is, I guess, what I've been spinning, which is a slightly, I wouldn't even really say heavier. Before I bought my new fleece, I was prepping and spinning my other natural gray fleece. And I combed a bunch, and when I comb my fiber, I don't really like it to sit around too long because it might get damaged in some way or like less easy to spin. So I decided I was just going to spin what I prepped to spin and spin it first before moving on to my big project. Similar to what I was speaking on regarding my knitting projects. And so I have this bobbin and a second bobbin that's nearly done. I have just about like maybe 20 grams more fiber to spin, but some of the fiber I have left to spin is different than the rest. So I don't know what happened when I was prepping this fleece, except maybe it just had a lot of lanolin, and I didn't break the pieces up enough. I know that I didn't comb the flicks, or I didn't flick the ends of the fiber when before I washed it. So I think that the lanolin just got stuck in the fibers when I was trying to strip it. So some areas of this fleece are really lanolin-y, and the process of drafting, it's like really hard. It just hardly wants to move. So it's challenging to spin because it does that. It kind of doesn't move over itself. It just really wants to stay where it is. And then when you get it, you just kind of get a less even spin, and it's not as enjoyable. And then I have other parts of the same fleece, and it's all mixed up, that are not the case. It has some lanolin still in it, but it drafts much easier. It's much more smooth. I will say, though, that flicking the ends of your fleece when you prep it will make it the most smooth, and I do not recommend not doing it. I definitely recommend it. It also gets rid of all the little bits that would break off when you're carding it or when you're combing it. Because if you break them off before you wash it, you're separating them out, and there's less chance that they're going to get even more mixed in with all the fiber. So this morning I carded on my drum carder some fiber I set aside from the most recent fleece that I bought, and here it is. You'll see that there are little lumps and little bumps. I don't know if I'm going to fold those into the spin and make it kind of funky, or if I'm going to pick them out. But this was a quick attempt I made this morning at carding some fiber on the drum carder. This part of the fleece was selected because it was not super organized. The fibers had already been kind of picked apart, and when it's pre-picked open, I prefer to prepare it on a drum carder versus my hand combs. So I did just 2 passes. I try not to pass fine wools more than necessary because it will create little neps and noils. It's much cleaner and much easier to handle than the lanolin that is trapped in this fleece. In preparation for my Nightingale sweater spin, I decided to do a knitted swatch of the yarn I could make from the natural gray fleece that I spun up. So here's a sample of the yarn. Here is the knitted gauge. I knit the bottom area in a size 4, the middle in a 6, and the top in an 8. The sweater pattern calls for suggested needle sizes 5 and 7, and because I don't have 5s and 7s other than in my interchangeable set, I'm probably going to knit on 4s and 6s. Because I did meet gauge for the sweater on the 6. And I do generally like my sweaters kind of tightly knit. Also, I'm between sizes extra small and small. And when I look at the Nightingale pattern, I think to myself that I would prefer it to fit me a little more snug than on the model who is wearing the size small. I do think I might want to decrease the sleeves a little extra or make it a bell sleeve. I haven't decided yet. But I knit a swatch. So I'm really excited about this. I don't know what to say about my handspun. Obviously, like, I'm enamored by it because I made it, and that's cool. Like, my own hands took this from raw wool to a swatch. But I don't know. If I had bought this yarn to knit with, I would tell myself it's kind of ropey. But I mean, it's not super hard on my hands or anything. It's just that it is very round too. I don't know. I mean, like, it's just so defined. So I think this is going to be great for knitting cables. I'm excited to take on the task. And yeah, I'm like on a spinning kick right now. I don't know why. I really do need to start knitting that Christmas sweater that I'm doing. So perhaps my attention will now shift. That is all for this week's episode of the Thread to Mend podcast. I am going to come out with some finished object videos just to add to my channel so that I don't have to explain in each episode what I'm wearing and what it's made of, and any person watching any episode will be able to find out those details without too much extra effort. I hope you are all well, and thanks again for watching. Take care.